the run-up to New Year's, the air in the house was thick with the scent of roasted chicken and cinnamon candles, creating an artificial idyll that Kalen's parents always strived to present. Kalen had barely tossed his jacket onto a chair when he heard a knock at the door. His father Dorian's face and his mother Elijah's instantly tightened with tension. When his father opened the door, a man Kalen hadn't seen in years appeared on the threshold, his uncle Silas. His mere presence palpably shifted the atmosphere. Tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing gray eyes, Silas entered the house without waiting for an invitation. Silence descended upon the room. Kalen, feeling awkward, sat by the sofa, trying to understand the reason for his uncle's unexpected visit after so many years of silence. His father mumbled something indistinct by way of greeting, but Silas, ignoring him, addressed Kalen directly. "How's that $3 million trust fund I left you doing?" The words struck like a bolt from the blue. Kalen blinked, disbelieving his ears. "What trust fund? I'm delivering pizzas just to survive." His uncle's face contorted with rage. Silas's furious gaze turned to Kalen's parents. The festive lighting suddenly resembled interrogation lamps. His father's expression hardened and his mother's hands trembled as she aimlessly rearranged napkins. In the silence, which felt deafening, his parents stood without a word. Silas's unyielding gaze burned through them. The air filled with tension that made Kalen's heart pound. His parents looked cornered, like people whose lies were about to be exposed. Then Silas slowly turned to Kalen, pulled a sealed envelope from his coat pocket, and placing it in his nephew's hand said, "Your parents have been hiding something. It's time you knew the truth." In that moment, the world Kalen knew crumbled. Kalen grew up in a home where silence was the most eloquent language. His father, Dorian, measured worth in numbers, grades, salaries, possessions. If you didn't meet his high standards, you were treated as a personal enemy. His mother, Elijah, seemed softer, but her decisions were always predictable. She always agreed with her husband, even if she wanted to say something else. It was easier for her to avoid his anger than to assert her opinion. Such was the balance in their home, his father's control, his mother's submission, and Kalen, stuck in the middle, trying to find a breath of fresh air. By 22, Kalen had lost hope of ever earning his parents' approval. He worked himself to the bone at a local pizzeria, driving around the city in an old car with a broken heater. Winter nights pierced through his jacket as he delivered food to strangers who barely gave him a glance. He returned home with aching feet, barely making ends meet while paying off student loans. Kalen dreamed of more, but dreams seemed an unaffordable luxury in his harsh reality. His parents knew how hard he worked but never offered help. His father only smirked when Kalen came home in his work uniform. "If you had studied harder, you wouldn't have to waste your time delivering," he would say, as if Kalen had chosen this fate, as if his exhaustion was proof of laziness. His mother would silently lower her eyes and clear the table, as if ignoring the problem could lessen the pain. But his father's words always stung. Kalen felt invisible in his own home. Every paycheck reminded him how stuck he was, but every night under their roof told him how much he still needed them. Rent was exorbitant, tuition kept rising, and Kalen was drowning in debt. His peers were moving into their own apartments, building careers, and settling into their lives. He, meanwhile, wiped pizza stains off his jacket and pretended not to hear his father's disappointed sighs. Holidays only emphasized the contrast. New Year's Eve was Kalen's least favorite time. His parents decorated the house with silver garlands and glowing candles, creating the illusion of a perfect family. They invited neighbors and relatives, laughed loudly, and spoke of achievements that had nothing to do with Kalen. Dorian poured drinks and boasted about family stability, while Kalen sat in a corner, clutching his phone, wishing the evening would end quickly. The festive hustle was winding down, yet a heavy, oppressive weight hung in the air. Kalen had just finished an exhausting shift at the pizzeria. His fingertips still carried the faint scent of garlic oil, and his legs ached from countless stair climbs during deliveries. Stepping through the front door, he expected to find comfort in the warmth of home, but instead, he felt the falseness of the situation, as if he had walked into a theatrical production where everyone but him knew their lines. His father cast a fleeting glance at him, shook his head disapprovingly, and muttered something under his breath about Kalen's appearance. His mother hastily told him to change to match the festive atmosphere of the evening. He had no energy to argue, so he put on a clean shirt and sat on the edge of the living room sofa, trying to drown out the chatter by scrolling through the news on his phone. The cheerful laughter of those around him only underscored his solitude within his own family. Suddenly, a sharp, insistent knock echoed at the door. His father froze. His mother's smile faltered. Guests turned their heads in confusion. The door swung open, and Uncle Silas appeared on the threshold, disrupting the usual course of events with his arrival. He wasn't a frequent guest. He disliked small talk and holiday pleasantries. An estranged brother who had fallen out with his father years ago and hadn't been to their house since. His visit was as unexpected as a bolt from the blue. Silas's presence instantly filled the entire space. He carried himself like a man who had created his own world and had no desire to fit into anyone else's mold. His piercing gaze almost immediately settled on Callan. Before anyone could react, Silas, without waiting for greetings, asked a question that struck like a bolt from the blue. "Callan, how's that $3 million trust fund I left you doing?" The words echoed through the room. The guests froze in astonishment. Inside, everything turned cold, his mind seemingly empty. His father's jaw clenched convulsively. His mother gripped the edge of the table. A suffocating silence hung in the air, binding everyone and rendering them speechless. "I don't have any trust fund," he replied, his voice trembling. "I've been working pizza delivery just to make ends meet." For a moment, everyone froze. The festive lights flickered mockingly, reflecting in wine glasses and silver ornaments. His uncle's face darkened, his eyes flashing with anger as he shifted his gaze to Callan's parents. They stood like statues, unable to move or utter a single word, bound by their own fear. In that moment, he realized that a truth was hidden in this house, buried under years of silence, and he had accidentally stumbled upon it. The silence that followed his uncle's question stretched taut, like a string about to snap. His father's lips thinned into a tight line. His mother's hands trembled almost imperceptibly, a detail only a keen observer would notice. The confused and awkward guests exchanged glances. Some nervously coughed and pretended to examine their drinks, but most remained frozen, awaiting further developments. Uncle Silas didn't hesitate. He took a step forward, his heavy boots thudding against the floor, and once again fixed his gaze on Callan. "I set up that trust fund when you were just a child," he said. $3 million to give you a head start, a chance to live debt-free. Are you telling me you know nothing about it?" His throat was dry, but he forced himself to answer, "I know nothing. I've been living in poverty since high school, working late delivering pizzas just to feed myself." A murmur went through the room. His father's jaw clenched so tightly that a grinding sound could be heard. His mother lowered her gaze, pretending to adjust the silverware as if that could shield her from the approaching storm. Silas turned his glare to the parents, his face contorted with fury. "Dorian, Elijah, can you explain why your son knows nothing about his inheritance?" His voice thundered through the living room. The guests shifted uncomfortably. His father cleared his throat but said nothing. His mother's lips parted, but no words escaped them. Callan watched them, his heart pounding. For years he had accepted their strictness, control, and disappointment. But this was different. This was betrayal, crudely etched into the walls of his childhood. A mix of anger and bewilderment churned in his chest. A suffocating silence, woven from bewilderment and confusion, hung in the room. "Answer me," he couldn't help but exclaim, his voice louder than he intended. "What is this trust fund? Why do I know nothing about it?" His father turned sharply to him, his eyes flashing with fury. "This is neither the time nor the place for this," he snarled through clenched teeth. "And when is the time?" Callan retorted, his voice trembling but unwavering. "When I'm 50 and working myself to the bone for pennies?" The attendees gasped, stunned by his audacity. His mother reached out as if to calm him, but he pulled away. He craved the truth. He needed it like air. Silas's voice, like a sharp blade, cut through the silence. "You think you can stay silent? Do you have any idea how I fought with your father to ensure Callan had some security? Do you remember my promises to your father on his deathbed?" He pointed a finger at his father. "You were supposed to honor them. You were supposed to protect your son. His father's face contorted with a mix of anger and panic. "You don't know what you're talking about, Silas. You left. You abandoned this family. Don't you dare show up after all these years and throw accusations at us." I left because of you, Silas cut in, because of your greed and your lies. His gaze fell back on Callan, and now I see you've dragged your son into the same mire. Each word felt like a noose tightening around his chest. He felt blood rush to his face, his palms grew sweaty. He looked at his mother, silently begging her to refute it, to dispel this nightmare. She only shook her head weakly, tears welling in her eyes. "Mom," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Is it true?" She closed her eyes, and that was enough for him to understand the full depth of the betrayal. Rage engulfed him. Years of backbreaking labor, nights spent hungry to save a little money, the humiliation of his father's constant criticism, it all crashed down on him at once. "You knew," he cried. "All this time you let me think I was worthless, struggling for every scrap of bread, knowing a trust fund awaited me. How could you do this to me?" His father slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses jump. "You don't understand what we sacrificed. You have no idea the pressure we were under." "Pressure?" Callan roared back. "I ate cold pizza slices for lunch while you flaunted new suits and went on vacations. Don't you dare talk to me about pressure." The guests were in shock. Some, quietly excusing themselves, hurried to leave the room, but most remained, stunned by the unfolding drama. A heavy atmosphere of betrayal and distrust hung in the air. Silas's fury intensified. He stepped closer, his voice softer but no less forceful. "Colin, they have hidden the truth from you for years. I can no longer stand by and watch this." He pulled a sealed envelope, thick and heavy, from his coat's inner pocket and handed it to him. He hesitated, his hands trembling. His parents looked at the envelope as if it were a deadly weapon. "What is this?" he whispered, barely audible. "The truth," Silas replied firmly. "Your grandfather knew this day might come. He left this letter for you. It contains everything you need to know." He took the envelope. Its weight felt substantial in his palm, like a stone. His father made a sharp move forward, as if to snatch it, but Silas blocked his path. His mother's face contorted with pain, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered, "Please, Callan, don't open it." "Why?" he demanded, clutching the letter to his chest. "What could be so terrible that you'd rather watch me suffer than tell me the truth?" Neither of them answered. Their silence was the loudest betrayal of all. In that moment, he realized what he had never admitted to himself. His parents had never protected him. They had only protected themselves. And now, as the letter burned in his hand, he knew that everything written within it would shatter the fragile thread of trust that still bound him to them. The envelope in his hand felt heavier than a mere sheet of paper should. It was tightly sealed, his name written on the front in his grandfather's firm, decisive hand. His heart constricted as he stared at it. This was not just a letter. It was a key to the truth that had been hidden from him for years, a truth his parents clearly didn't want him to know. Uncle Silas's gaze was fixed on him. "Read it, Colin. Don't let them control you any longer." His voice was quiet but firm, as if protective. Dorian, Callan's father, stepped forward, his face ablaze with anger. "Don't you dare touch that letter!" he roared, unleashing the authoritarian tone that had served to suppress his son's will throughout his life. "That message was not meant for your eyes," his mother whispered anxiously, her trembling hands reaching out to her son. "Colin, please listen to your father. This letter will only bring you suffering. We wanted to shield you from this." Her words wounded him more deeply than his father's anger. Shield him? From what? From the truth that he wasn't destined for a miserable existence? From years of lies? Rage boiled in his chest, and his stomach twisted with indignation. He clutched the letter to himself, his voice trembling but firm. "No, you don't get to decide what I know. You won't keep me in the dark any longer." The guests in the room, who had previously grouped together at the back, now had wide eyes and whispered nervously. Their gazes held pity and curiosity, but no one dared to leave the room. It seemed the whole world held its breath, awaiting his decision. Dorian's voice broke into a shout. "You are my son, and as long as you live under my roof you will do as I say. That letter will remain unopened." Callan straightened his shoulders. For the first time in his life, he didn't flinch at his father's command. His voice was steady, almost cold. then perhaps I no longer belong under your roof." The words surprised even himself. He saw astonishment flash across his father's face, quickly replaced by fury. His mother gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks, but he couldn't take his words back. The letter had forced a choice upon him, and he had finally drawn a line. Silas approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to let them intimidate you anymore," he said. His presence was calming, creating a wall between Callan and the fear his parents had always used to keep him in obedience. He turned to them, and his voice, fueled by years of frustration, grew louder. "All my life you told me I was good for nothing. You exhausted me with endless work, made me believe I had to beg for every scrap of bread, all while knowing wealth awaited me. You let me drown, knowing you had a life raft hidden behind your backs. Why? Explain to me why you did this to me?" His mother shook her head, sobbing and covering her face with her hands. His father shot him a furious glare, but for the first time, fear flickered behind his anger. He wasn't afraid of his uncle or the guests, but of his son knowing the truth. "You wouldn't understand," he snarled through clenched teeth. "That money wasn't meant for you to squander. It wasn't for a boy who can't stand on his own 2 feet. We used it to preserve our family." The words struck him like a blow. His voice trembled as he shouted back, "You stole my future to preserve your pride. You made me believe I was worthless to protect yourselves." The tension in the room reached its peak. His mother tried to intervene, but Silas blocked her path, his voice calm but firm. "Enough lies. This young man deserves the truth." Callan looked down at the envelope in his hands again. His fingers brushed the seal. His heart pounded fiercely, as if ready to burst from his chest. The decision weighed on him like the weight of the world. If he opened it, there would be no going back. Everything would change. But if he didn't, he would remain in the same cage his parents had built for him. He lifted his head, and his voice, quiet but resolute, rang out. "I'm opening it." His father lunged forward, but Silas pushed him back with unexpected force. The guests gasped, some crying out in alarm. His mother's sobs grew louder, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Please, Callan, don't do it. We did it for you. We thought we were protecting you." Her words made his hands tremble, but he shook his head. "Protecting me? Or yourselves?" Silas looked at him and nodded. "You need to know. Don't let their fear control you any longer." He ran his thumb under the seal. The sound of tearing paper echoed deafeningly in the silent room. His parents froze, their faces contorted with panic. The guests leaned forward, holding their breath. His uncle stood beside him, his hand still on his shoulder, his gaze fixed on the letter. In his hands, he held the envelope addressed personally to him. Unfolding the thick sheet, he felt a veil cloud his eyes. This was not just about money, but about truth, about freedom from the deception that had defined his existence. The trembling letter became a harbinger of revelation, capable of shattering his perception of his family. The only sound in the room was his own accelerated heartbeat. The handwriting was unmistakable. His grandfather's, firm and caring, a quality he had never felt from his father. "Colin," the message began, "this trust fund is created exclusively for you. It is my gift, so that you may avoid the hardships your father created for others. Use it wisely, remembering that it belongs only to you. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. If you are reading this letter, it means the people I trusted have hidden the truth from you." His breath caught, the words blurred with tears, but he continued to read. Attached to the letter were legal documents with signatures, confirming that his grandfather had left him $3 million in a trust fund, accessible at age 18. Instead, he had lived in poverty for 4 years while his parents secretly managed money that wasn't theirs. A gasp went through the room. His mother, covering her face with her hands, let out a muffled sob. His father clenched his fists, his knuckles white. Callan looked up and met their gaze with unconcealed anger. His voice trembled, but it rang out louder than ever. "You stole from me. You stole my future." Dorian's face was contorted with fury and despair. "You don't understand what we sacrificed. That money wasn't meant for squandering. We used it to keep this house, to maintain our lifestyle. Without it, we would have lost everything." Kalen couldn't believe his ears. You lost nothing. I lost everything. Years of my life spent believing I was worthless. I lost the chance to live without fear, to pursue my dreams, to become more than a pizza delivery driver barely making ends meet. You had everything, and I had nothing. And you knew it was mine. His mother sank to her knees, sobbing. We only wanted to protect you from premature responsibility. We thought we were doing the right thing. Her words broke something inside him. All his life he had waited for protection, for a willingness to put him above his father. But now, with the truth revealed, she only offered excuses. Uncle Silas's voice cut through the noise. You didn't protect him. You robbed him. You lied to your own son, making him live in poverty while you lined your pockets with his future. He pointed at Dorian. You've always been selfish, and now everyone sees it. His father snarled, his voice hoarse with rage. You think you're so righteous, Silas? You abandoned this family years ago. You don't know what it means to sacrifice for a child. Silas stepped closer. I know what it means. That's why I fought to ensure Callan had something his father couldn't spoil. And you've proven me right. He looked at them, his chest heaving with emotion. His father's anger, his mother's tears, his uncle's fury. It all swirled around him, but he felt surprisingly calm. For the first time, he wasn't a child in this family, but the one holding the truth and the power they had tried so hard to keep from him. He held the letter high for all to see. This is proof. Proof that you lied to me, allowed me to suffer for no reason, choosing yourselves over me. The guests whispered loudly, some shaking their heads in disapproval. Many pulled out their phones, recording the scene. His father's face paled as he realized the humiliation was extending beyond these walls. In the epicenter of the unfolding drama, within the confines of those very walls, Callan turned to his mother. His voice, muffled but by no means lacking sharpness, pierced the silence. Couldn't you have said something just once? Slipped me a note, whispered in my ear when he wasn't around. But you chose silence. You chose his side, not mine. His mother's sobs intensified, a pathetic, "Forgive me, Callan. I thought I was protecting you," breaking through her tears. But the words came too late. They were too little. Callan carefully folded the letter, returning it to the envelope. The tremor in his hand subsided, replaced by a strange tranquility, as if the storm that had raged within him had finally quieted, leaving him standing amidst the wreckage. Uncle Silas touched his shoulder again, as if to encourage him. You won't have to carry this burden alone anymore. I'll make sure the trust fund is rightfully returned to you. They won't be able to keep what belongs to you. Callan merely nodded, his gaze fixed on his parents. You robbed me. You lied to me. You made me believe I was worthless. I can never forgive you for this. Dorian tried to take a step towards him, his voice trembling with desperation. Callan, you're my son. You can't just turn your back on us. Callan met his gaze, unwavering. You turned your back on me long ago. The words hung in the air, like heavy weights. His father's face contorted, expressing something Callan had never seen before, defeat. His mother reached out, but he stepped back. Standing before them now was not a boy begging for approval, but an adult armed with truth and ready to leave. The letter had revealed not just the theft of money, but the true nature of his parents. And that was something Callan could never forget. After this heavy confrontation, a painful emptiness settled in the room. His father stood motionless, his chest heaving with suppressed rage, but he uttered no words. His mother wept silently, her tears falling to the floor like a belated confession of guilt. She was unable to speak. The guests stopped whispering, their faces expressing shock, disgust, and pity for Callan. He had never felt so vulnerable before, yet at the same time, he had never felt so free. The letter was still in his hand. Its weight had changed, transforming from a burden into a shield. For years, Callan had blamed himself, believing the problem lay within him. He believed his failures were his essence, that his struggles were proof of his weakness, his lack of intelligence and discipline. But now he realized that he had not been held back by his own inadequacy, but by the betrayal of those closest to him. Uncle Silas squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. Now you know, he said, his voice weary, as if the battle had taken something from him too. The rest is your choice. Kalen nodded. His uncle had been absent for many years, but at this moment he was the only person in the room who felt like family. It was he who had looked out for Kalen's future, and even after his parents tried to corrupt it, he was there to help set things right. Kalen turned to his parents. His father's face was pale, his eyes darting nervously, as if searching for a convincing justification that could rectify what had been done. His mother tightly clasped her hands, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Kalen, please understand. We never meant to hurt you. We thought we were doing the right thing." Her words were full of bitterness but offered no comfort. Kalen slowly shook his head. "You didn't protect me. You caged me. You let me believe I was worthless while you took everything that belonged to me. This isn't love. It's control." The truth, like a heavy burden, hung in the air, undeniable and irreversible. For the first time, Kalen saw his parents not as omnipotent arbiters of his destiny, but as two people who chose lies over honesty and greed over love. He tucked the letter back into the envelope and put it in his jacket pocket. Then he straightened up, wiped the tears from his face, and headed for the door. Each step felt like a release from the burden he had carried for years. "Where are you going?" his father snarled. There was no longer authority in his voice, only desperation. "Away," Kalen replied, "to build the life you tried to steal from me." His mother reached out, as if to stop him, but he walked past her without even a glance. Silas followed him to the exit. Before leaving the room, he cast a final glance at his brother, as if drawing a line under what had transpired. "You lost him," he said bitterly, "and it's your own fault." Then they walked out together into the frosty air that stung Kalen's cheeks. In the distance, the sky erupted in bright fireworks, signaling the arrival of the new year. For most people, it was a time of jubilation, but for Kalen, each explosion of fireworks sounded like the beginning of a new life. They walked down the icy driveway, and their breath plumed in the cold air. For the first time in a long while, Kalen felt the tension leave his chest. His uncle, noticing his state, said encouragingly, "You're much stronger than they ever allowed you to believe, and now you have a chance to prove it." Kalen nodded silently, feeling tears welling in his eyes. But these were not tears of despair, but tears of liberation. He understood that a difficult path lay ahead, full of legal battles, hard conversations, and painful memories. However, he no longer felt helpless. He had irrefutable evidence, the support of a loved one, and most importantly, a future that belonged only to him. As the city lights emerged on the horizon, he felt a new chapter of his life beginning. This chapter would not be written with lies, it would be based on the truth he had finally found. And to everyone reading these lines, he wanted to say, no matter who tries to silence you, no matter who tries to control your destiny, you deserve to know the truth about yourself. You deserve freedom, and once you find it, you will never let anyone take it from you again.